Introduce Colin Morris, who's here from Flurry. Flurry is a mobile analytics company you guys may or may not know about or use. And so we just invited him to share some of what they're seeing in their network. So take it away.
Thanks. So we're going to have a quick presentation here, probably with not the same amount of volume of numbers that you guys just showed, because we don't have survey data, but just our own usage metrics. But thanks a lot for having us. Just so to get a sense for who's here, how many of you have heard of Flurry before? Okay, great. And exactly, it's a tasty drink. It's cheap. How many of you guys actually use Flurry within your mobile apps, if you guys are developers? Okay, cool. Great. So just to give you guys a little bit of background for those who don't know, we provide a free service, mobile analytics on 4 different platforms: Android, iPhone, Java, and we can basically help developers monetize and help them look at the data that they have to be able to make the best choices possible by looking at how just general broad aggregate usage measures or very specific custom data points. So free and accurate real-time data about how to use your applications. This is the most widely used cross-platform solution right now. We merged with Pinch Media about 2 months ago, so that roughly doubled our size. Which is great, and it's been a great merger so far. We have unprecedented insight into your UE and how users navigate your application. I'll talk about that in a second. And you have access to performance data and being able to see real-time information. So I think what sets us apart from other mobile analytics companies out there is that we allow developers to, everyone has custom events, but we can allow them to create parameter analytics to basically track open-ended information within their application and then be able to see how users navigate their app through that. So that gives you a much deeper window into what the users are doing and then being able to make better product choices because of that. Depending on whether you've launched something new and you want to see whether the users are adopting it or whether they're actually quitting the app at that point. So that gives us a much better window into how how users use your app. Just to give you a sense of our size, we're at about 2 billion sessions a month. We're growing at we're doubling about every 2 months right now. I think we'll probably be around 4 billion sessions in 2 months. Monthly active agents, obviously 200 million. On unique phones, Apple iPhone, iPod Touch, and Google Android, we're at 60 million plus devices. So that gives us a really nice size to be able to leverage data set to provide marketing solutions and general metrics for developers. So we were asked here to come and talk about some of the trends we're seeing between the differences between the iPhone and Android and what we're seeing in the Android market. And so for us, we're very excited about using Android and developers adopting it. And as you can see here, starting in July, month by month growth is pretty healthy for new Android app project starts. So you can see that our developer base in general is pretty excited about it as well, and it continues to grow here. One of the things we should say, though, is in taking a look at how the usage metrics compare across the different platforms. Right now it's pretty similar. You got to figure that if you're looking at a handset that's relatively the same size and developers are porting the apps over in relatively the same manner, the usage metrics are pretty similar. So when it comes to developing business models and making sure that from a product standpoint, from a business standpoint, the apps are ready for the user on the particular handset, we're seeing similar numbers here. So you can see that this, as far as retention, is any user who's used an app within the last 7 days. All this information, by the way, should be available on our blog as well. And if you guys haven't tried Flurry, you can go and sign up for our demo. It's free on the site, as is our service in general, to be able to give you guys a sense for how we work. If you are going to check it now, we have a release in about 40 minutes, so I would suggest doing it now. So back to talking about usage metrics across the different platforms. Right now, you can see on these various categories, the entertainment category is a little bit higher frequency of use on Android. Games are about the same, lifestyle similar, news. Social networking, as far as session frequency is obviously a lot higher. And while we don't talk about release any individual developer data, we can tell you that Facebook is not working with us, so that would probably be skyrocket, to be honest, if that was the case. But here you can see that there's a lot of different types of usage by category, and there's another category breakdown metric and slide that we have on our blog that really talks about consumption style apps versus apps with higher attention, whether it's based on refreshing of content such as the news category or what have you. So just because this is frequency of use per month doesn't mean that necessarily the product lifespans are going to be the same. So the big difference right now that we're seeing right now, that we're hearing from developers and that we're seeing within our own data, is that the install base is disparate, right? Android is roughly 1/6 of the iPhone size. You have 75 million handsets versus 12.5 million handsets, which means you got to figure out whether it's going to be worth it for you to develop for that platform. Obviously, it's growing very fast, but at the same time, the market reality is that most people are still using the iPhone OS. The other two issues there is a higher percentage of Android apps are free. Distimo released a report, I believe, a month ago, showing that 57% on Android are free apps versus 25% on iPhone. So when it comes to freemium, I believe you guys were talking about in the previous presentation, you want to be able to make sure that the user expectation is going to be similar, and if there's going to be any sort of upsell opportunities, you got to know the market and see what it will bear. The other issue is fragmentation, right? We know that between the different handsets that are coming out and between the different versions of the OS, it's been pretty difficult for developers to be able to develop multiple instances of an app, or I should say multiple versions of an app for different OS versions, and that's something that we'll have to see how that pans out, but right now it's somewhat of an encumbrance to developers for Android. So this is just general project starts since July, and what we've been kind of reporting on throughout the fall was that, in fact, the ratio was actually changing because there was more Android project starts kind of coming up, and then there was that big change in December and January, and obviously we know why that is, because the iPad came out, or the announcement of it, and so a lot of developers started, we think at least, maybe pausing their Android efforts to be able to develop for this. So you can see with our internal data again on new project starts before August through December of 2009, having that average there, and then after January, a huge boost in new project starts for the new for the iPad, and developing trying to get ready for the new OS. So we're very excited about that, but we think that has probably slowed down Android development. It certainly has, within our internal metrics, of all the developers who work with us. So this slide really talks about what we've seen so far of applications testing on the iPad. We released a report about this a few weeks ago regarding what style or category of app is going to be popular there. Obviously, games, entertainment, and social networking take the lion's share here, and we kind of think that when it comes to leveraging what the handset has for the iPhone, that's going to be utilities and productivity and a lot of things that use what they have already in a probably more efficient way going forward, and then a lot of the more traditional media brands that are still waiting to get into the space, as well as gaming and larger brands and media will be developing specifically for the iPad, or at least more so than before.
What's the 44%?
44% is games. So we saw, of the applications testing on the iPad, 44% of them were in the games category, and that's all the subcategories as well.
And 14% is entertainment?
Yeah, sorry, 14% is entertainment, 7% is social networking, sports just behind that at 6%, travel at 5%, and then lifestyle, utilities, books, all much smaller, and music, news, productivity at the smallest. So that's really a brief example of what we've seen so far. What questions do you guys have?
When's App Circle coming out?
Say again?
App Circle, when's that coming out?
It's in private beta. When does it go public?
Yeah.
Probably within perhaps a month or so. What else? Any other questions about usage metrics that we're seeing or general trends?
I would guess that iPad cross-section is very similar and representative of the same cross-section on iPhone, iPod Touch.
No, actually, we see much more parity between a lot of the different categories right now. I don't think I have a slide on that at this point, but I could definitely send you some more information. But from the outset, this is much more heavily based with apps and games and entertainment, social networking.
Where did you get the data from?
We pulled it from detecting apps that we saw within our system for the new OS, and actual apps reporting from those devices.
Any plans to track any demographics of the users?
We don't have any plans internally right now, just because we're based on usage and really based on a UDID level, being able to see what other apps, as long as they're using Flurry, a UDID has and how they use those apps. But there's no demo information that we put on that internally.
Have you ever looked at apps that are started both at iPhone and Android compared to usage? I'm saying for identical apps, it's all same apps with both platforms. Do you ever compare usage?
Anecdotally, yes, for sure, and as long as it's there's not too much difference between the two, it's pretty similar usage in general as far as retention and sessions and session length. And I haven't seen huge differences just anecdotally with the developers we've dealt with. It's been pretty similar. I mean, obviously, the adoption of the new users can grow a little bit different because of how many people are available to be able to buy that within that platform.
Go back to your top line numbers, the ones you had at the beginning. That was the 600,000, that slide, monthly active users. What does this tell you about, like, on a per app basis?
Well, we're on the iPhone, and the iPod Touch, we're on an average of 3 apps each. So repeat your question if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, I was trying to get like active agents per app or something like that. Like, how many for an average app, how many activities you typically trace? If I
Well, there's the kind of like larger general metrics like session time, and then and new users and all those sorts of things. And then there's technical metrics as far as what device it's on, what OS it's running on, geolocation, and all the kind of things you would expect for most web analytics, except for the geolocation. And then there's all the custom events that they can set up and parameter analytics to be able to track much more granularly all the other things that they want to do for their particular app.
most of your apps, are they mostly just tracking general session time, or are they looking at granular activities?
The stuff that we roll up obviously needs to be the same data point across the board, but if there's other trends that we can see of similar things, then we might do that.